we're doing something a little different, something a little new today. It's gonna be fun. Today we are gonna be talking about the legend, Ozzy Osbourne. You guys ever heard of him? Put a 1 in the chat if you ever heard of Ozzy Osbourne. We have a guest today who has had a lot of experience with Ozzy Osbourne, which is very exciting. Very exciting. So this special guest also just so happens to be the owner and CEO of a little magazine called Modern Drummer, chat. Modern Drummer magazine, the most important drumming magazine ever in the history of drumming magazines. We have David Frangioni with us today. I'm not gonna just be drumming today. We're gonna be getting some insight into the world of rock today with the Rock Talk episode 1. That's our episode 1. What? Does that mean that there will be more episodes? Today, we're gonna be talking about the legend Ozzy Osbourne. Episode 1 of Rock Talk. He is the owner of Modern Drummer magazine. He's a legend in the industry. He's worked with Ozzy Osbourne. He's worked with Aerosmith. He's worked with a long list of people. Chat, I want you to welcome in a friend of mine and our brand new guest who's ready to spam W's. Do you guys have him ready? Introducing the one, the only, David Frangioni, everybody. Spam up the W's in the chat. David, welcome. Welcome to the stream.
Thank you. Great to be here, Office Drummer. This is fantastic. Hey, guys, welcome to Rock Talk.
Yes. So David and I have been plotting and scheming a bunch of stuff. I've been telling you guys a little bit that I've been working on a lot of stuff behind the scenes. And David here has been a huge part in that. We have a lot of stuff planned for you guys this year, obviously around Streamer University and all kinds of other things. But this is something that we wanted to try out, see how you guys would feel about it. Brought to you by Modern Drummer, guys.
Yeah.
So
we got some rock. We're going to talk about rock. Modern Drummer. Here's Chad Smith.
W.
Definition of rock in his Legends book, and lots of rock to talk about in this, and Alex Van Halen's Legends and Neil Peart, and some great stuff that we have together, Office Drummer, that I think everyone's going to love. If you love music, if you love rock, and of course, drumming, it goes without saying. But even if you don't play the drums, what we're talking about is just for anybody who loves music, because we've spent our whole lives in music, creating music, and just really, doing everything we can to push the envelope.
David, there's already people in the chat saying you're handsome. You're taking over my stream already. What's with that? Wait.
Yeah, that's very kind of them. That's very. Are they sure the camera's working?
No, it's working. Wait, someone in the chat was saying you look like a certain actor.
Yeah, I get Scott Baio all the time.
Scott Baio, yeah, I think that's who it was. David, how about you go ahead and tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
So 2 years old, eye cancer, survive it, half blind, huge trauma, love music and drumming, play tons of gigs as an up-and-coming drummer as a kid, find music technology, realize that my passion and calling is in music technology, always loved rock music, and then ended up having a career now as we sit on this call together for decades, working with some of the most impactful artists in all genres, but especially rock. And it's like a childhood dream. And my role, working with all these different artists has been very different. Like a lot of guys in our business, right? They're a producer, they're a drummer, they're a guitarist, they're an engineer. Like they're one thing and then that's what they do. And that's awesome. But my passion has always been a whole myriad of different things. So I've taken all of that effort that you would normally put into one thing, and I've just stacked it and done it in multiple things. So producer, engineer, music technologist, software and hardware developer, sample libraries, build recording studios, build home theaters, start home automation companies, do artist development, and a whole host of other things. And along that journey in these different roles, all at a very high level, I've collaborated with amazing artists, as you shared earlier. And of course, one of them was Ozzy Osbourne, with whom I worked for over 10 years. It might have even been close to 15. That started in 2003. And then it stopped maybe around 2015, or I don't remember exactly when. Pretty much all the projects we had been working on and the things that we were doing together just were finished. We're done. So that was the end of the collab. But in that time, I spent a lot of time with Ozzy, spent a lot of time at the house, two different houses, because first he was living on Doheny in Beverly Hills, where the show, The Osbournes, which was a very famous show at the time, the highest rated show in cable television history, it was on MTV. And so he was living at that house on Doheny. And then after the show ended, a couple of years after that, he moved to Hidden Hills. His family does not live in either right now, which is why I'm, you know, giving detail on where he lived, because they don't live there anymore. But that was my time with him, was in these two locations, and at those locations I spent a ton of time with him, and just really amazing experiences, both professionally and personally, and really truly was grateful for the fact that he brought me into his camp, he and Sharon and the kids, and they were the most amazing people that I could ever have wanted to meet. And it was really like, I don't have anything but amazing things to say about them. So if you've ever heard Ozzy speak, he has, like, you know, of course he has a British accent, and it's a little bit of a stutter, because he's always like speaking so fast and different ideas. So I knew his voice from watching the show. Everybody knows his voice from watching the show. Prior to that, I wouldn't have known that, but he was on I watched the show so much.
It's taken me 17 years, this is as old as my son is, to finally go fishing with my son, like every father should do once in his life.
That all of a sudden, I'm sitting in an Italian restaurant on a Monday night, and I get a phone call, and it's literally out of the blue sky. And Ozzy's assistant at the time was the person who was calling, it turns out. Came up like an unlisted number. But this person, I answer the phone, and the person says, "Could you hold for Mr. Osbourne, please?" And I'm thinking, oh, you know, this is a wind-up, right? Somebody's giving me, you know, a hard time or playing a joke. Even though I dealt with rock stars every day, I wasn't really thinking Ozzy was calling me at this moment. Mark Hudson had mentioned Ozzy wanted to do it, whatever, but it was just kind of out there. It wasn't anything solid. And then all of a sudden, I hear Ozzy's voice, and it turns out he's on a jet. He's on a private jet flying to a gig. He was flying to an Ozfest show, and he's calling me from the jet to ask me about the studio. And so he goes, "Dave, is Ozzy here?" And I was just like, oh my God, it's really Ozzy. And I said, "Hey, Oz." And I felt like I knew him my whole life in 1 minute, because he was so friendly and warm. And he said, "Can you build me a studio, babe?" And I said, "Well, of course." I said, "What kind of studio do you want?" And the phone is cutting out because he's on a jet, right? So you know, he's 40,000 feet in the air or whatever. So I'm hearing, "Can you do that?" And I said, yeah, sure, Oz. And I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, he must have just described like a vocal booth or something. And I said, "Okay, well, how big would the studio be?" And he said, "Oh, well, yeah." And I said, "Okay, Oz, yeah, all right, okay." And he says, "All right, great. Here's Tony." And he hands me back to the assistant. And the assistant said, "You get all that?" And I said, "No, I didn't get a word, but I will build him his studio. I've done it hundreds of times, and I will do it again for Ozzy. It would be an honor." And he said, "Well, we're going to New Mexico for a show tonight, but we're flying back to Beverly Hills after the show. Can you be there tomorrow?" This was like 8 o'clock in Miami at night. I said, "Absolutely." So I booked a 6 a.m. flight. I got 3 hours extra, right? Because I'm 3 hours behind. So 3 hours ahead. And so when I get there, I get an extra 3 hours. So I was literally at his house within like 12 hours, pretty much. And I'll never forget when I pulled up to the gate and I'd seen the house dozens of times on TV. And it was so weird to pull up to the gate. And it just felt almost surreal. But the show was so popular that when I pulled up to the gate, there were like 30 people waiting outside of the gate. Like it was like Beatlemania. It was literally like Beatlemania. And Mark had told me that's what it was like, but he wasn't exaggerating. And so I pull up and I hit the call button and there's just people everywhere, fans. And nobody gets up to the gate and goes in unless you're an Osbourne pretty much. Because, so they're waiting to see the Osbournes, but all of a sudden they see me get access and they're just all looking and they start taking pictures of me because they must be thinking this guy's got to be somebody. Little did they know I'm just here to build the studio. But I get in and that was the first time I ever met Ozzy that morning, that early, it was like 11 a.m. whatever, and I meet him for the first time and the adventure began.
Wow. That's so insane. So you actually went, the first time you met him, you actually went to the house where they're filming the Osbournes. There's fans outside. When you walk in, is it just filled with cameras? Is it like, what was the house setup
That's
like?
a great question. That's a great question. It was really cool to see because you never saw this on the show. You never saw this part of it because it was all behind the scenes. In the garage, they converted it to a studio, a video studio, production studio. So they had 18 monitors to show each of the 18 cameras that had been installed in the house. And what they had is they had 16 cameras permanently installed. They wired into all the different rooms. And they had 2 cameras, one of each of the 2 on a shoulder pack. So they had like 2 roaming crews of cameras that could just kind of go wherever they needed to and follow Ozzy and the family outside of the house and all of that. And then the other 16 cameras were permanently installed. So when I walked in, I walked through the garage, I looked to my left, and there's like literally like the control room of a television station. And I see all the monitors and the crew of people looking to see what's going on the cameras. And I see the 2 film crews sitting there because they didn't start till 11 a.m. So they worked 11 to 11 Monday through Saturday. That's when they would film and capture what was going on and get all the content. They took Sundays off. And then, they didn't film from 11 p.m. to 11 a.m. So as I was getting there, they were about to start the day shift. And so I saw that and it was really cool. I mean, for me as a fan, it was really cool to see the behind the scenes. And so I walked through the garage and then you kind of enter into the kitchen where you always saw Ozzy watching television, and the family kind of congregating. And then we walk through there and then you go out to the backyard and then there was a guest house on the other side of the backyard, and that's where he wanted to put the studio. So he brought me to the guest house to see the proposed location and get my input if it was going to work or not. He was very, very collaborative, and he was he was a really brilliant guy. And so he was asking all the right questions and, and genuinely concerned, like, hey, is this going to work? Like he had a vision and then he had a space and he needed to know if the vision and the space were going to actually fit together and accomplish what he wanted.
Wow, it's so crazy because that's like Mafiathon except free. Like now it's almost like that would all have been done live. That's almost exactly the same setup that Kai had. It's funny how things come around like that. So
No, it is cutting edge though at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And to only have 1 day off a week is so crazy, to be working that hard and then also want to install a studio and continue working on music. I mean, his work ethic must have just been off the charts.
Yeah. No, he was unbelievable. His work ethic, his professionalism, and just the family was and is just extraordinary. It was one of the greatest honors to have been a part of that and to gotten to know them and been able to serve in the capacity that I did, building the studios and the home theaters and the home automation, like all the tech stuff, anything that had to do with audio, video, and technology. It started with the studio as I'm describing that first day, but it evolved. Once I started working with them, they really liked working with me and they trusted me. And so it evolved to like everything that they were doing, multiple homes, multiple locations, multiple, applications. So it really grew and evolved over that, kind of 12 to 15 year period.
Chat, if you guys have any questions, you can throw them in the chat and I'll ask David. And one question was, what was his vision for the studio? Was there anything particular?
Yeah, absolutely. His vision for the studio is he wanted to be able to do an album there start to finish. And that meant we had to be able to cut drums. We had to be able to cut, of course, vocals, goes without saying, but we had to be able to do all of it at a very high level and basically replace going to a commercial studio as much as possible. So it was a very high bar that he set.
Do you want to come over and see my studio?
All right. So you've been chilling out?
I haven't done anything at all for a while. Don't touch anything. Don't fucking touch anything. This is my storeroom for my equipment. Dogs are not allowed. Absolutely soundproof. The brains to my computer are in here. Don't touch anything.
Gotta have the disco ball, absolutely.
What's this for? Testing
It's for you not to fucking touch.
Okay.
And if I cut to the end of my time with Ozzy, his vision changed. We did 2 studios in the 2 different homes and a multitude of other projects. But the key projects for Ozzy, besides the home theaters, were the 2 studios. And after the second studio, which was at the Hidden Hills house, because they moved out of the house that they did the show in, and they moved to Hidden Hills, Ozzy decided he didn't want a home studio anymore. He had never had a home studio. I have the distinct honor of building Ozzy's first home studio, which to me was bizarre because in Ozzy Osbourne's career, what firsts are left, right? He's done everything. He's had everything, right? But there was a first. So I got to build his first studio, which was an incredible honor with my career to have that with Ozzy. And then after he had the second one, he realized that that moment in time was finished and that he had 2 different home studios. He had done like multiple records in the studios and multiple featurings. He did a lot of work in the studios we built. They were very successful collaborations. And the vision was accomplished fully, which was great. But then he realized he liked leaving the house and going to a studio. So the very thing he wanted to kind of get away from for a while, he kind of had his fill of that and then decided he wanted to go back to the old way of doing it before he had a home studio and go to another studio. So that was one of the main reasons that our collaboration was completed.
Wow. And did you ever end up on the show? On the Osbournes?
I did. You can see me. Yeah, you can see me on seasons 3 and 4, and there's clips on Amazon where it's showing now, and of course on the internet and all that. But yeah, I have tons of great stories. A lot of what I was on the show being filmed didn't get the final cut, so you won't see it, unless they release all the stuff they shot. But I am in episodes that actually are part of the seasons that you can see. Of course, I'm in the studio, most of those shots that they left. And it was incredible. I mean, to go from a fan of watching the show, I remember sitting in my TV room watching the show and laughing and just, being a huge Ozzy fan, following his career since Black Sabbath, and just getting such a kick out of how innovative and funny and entertaining and insightful the show was. And then all of a sudden, like 3 months later, I'm at the house being filmed for the next season. Like, it was a head twist. Like, you want to talk about just like, wow, anything can happen if you really put your mind to it and you really focus on it and want it to happen and you have great intentions. That's the definition of anything could happen. Because I couldn't believe I went from my sofa in my sitting room to the Osbourne sofa that I had been watching on television 3 months prior.
Wow, that's honestly so relatable to me with the whole Kai experience of just seeing him do his thing and then all of a sudden being there. It's a surreal moment. And we have a couple questions. So a gear nerd question was, what mixing console was in Ozzy's studio?
Great question. So we had two different consoles between the Beverly Hills studio, the one on the show, and the one in Hidden Hills. We changed. They were both control surfaces. Since Pro Tools HD was the platform that we were using, as you know, I helped develop that and worked very closely on launching Pro Tools. So it ended up being...
Sorry, we got... Chat, he helped develop Pro Tools. That is insane. That
as
is
a complete studio solution. That is correct. I was one of the first people to work closely and actually launch full studios as all based around Pro Tools, and then scaling that to literally hundreds into the thousands. That was a truly transformative time. It's funny because I was just talking to somebody the other day talking about how cutting edge that was and how transformative it really was. And I look at what we're doing with AI right now, and it makes all of that innovation look like it was 150 years ago. Like there was, and it wasn't. It was the 90s, right? It wasn't 150 years ago. But compared to the rapid pace and development and evolution of what I'm doing in AI, it's just astounding at what speed looks like in technology terms compared to then and now. Same level of impact, much different tempo. But if we go back to Ozzy, this is 2003. I've already done all of that with Pro Tools. There's tons of install bases and all the, everything was happening, and people already had complete studios around Pro Tools. So we used a Control 24, which was the hybrid control surface that Digidesign developed with Focusrite at the time, C24. And then in Hidden Hills, in the second studio, we went to a D control, actually a D command, which was the Icon series. It was the console that came out before Digidesign bought Euphonics. Avid bought Euphonics, and because it was Digidesign was the company that made Pro Tools, they sold to Avid. Then Avid bought Euphonics and created the S series of control surfaces. I have in my studio an S6, but that wasn't out at the time. When we did Ozzy Studio, there were the Control 24 line. There was the D Command, which was up to 24 faders. Very powerful control surface, though. Big step up from the Control 4. And then the biggest console they made, the most expandable, was the D Control, which could go up to, I think, 64 faders, if I'm remembering correctly. It could go to a very, very large form. But Ozzy didn't need that. He didn't need an expanded control surface to that extent. So we went with the D command for Hidden Hills.
Wow. Incredible. I mean, it still blows me away that you were so involved with Pro Tools and getting Ozzy hooked into that.
Well, and a step further, I introduced Kevin Churko, who I had sponsored to come into the country. If you look up Kevin Churko, for those who aren't into metal and rock, he's one of the most successful rock songwriter producers in the world. And he's a Canadian citizen originally. And he and I met. We were both working with Mutt Lange on Shania Twain's second or third record. And Kevin wanted to come into the U.S. This is early 2000s. And he needed a sponsor. And so I sponsored him. I was always a big believer in Kevin. And of course, his career speaks for itself. It's unbelievable. And but this is before a lot of that happened. And I brought him in, and then I introduced him to Ozzy, ended up co-writing and producing two of Ozzy's biggest records in the studios that I built.
My most notable first gig was the Ozzy gig, and that started out as an engineering gig as well. And it was really a matter of that Ozzy had just built a studio. A friend of mine, David Frangioni, had built his studio, and he had kind of limited resources for space. The drum room was very small, and Ozzy couldn't understand how the drums were going to sound big. And he always liked that Phil Collins kind of sound, so he said, can you get that? And so David said, hang on, let me call a friend. He can come by. He used to work for Mutt Lange. He can come by. He's a drummer. He can set up a drum kit. He can record it for you and show you how it sounds. So David called me, and luckily I had the night off, and I drove over there, set up his little kit, and mic'd it up and played some stuff. David called Ozzy in, and you know, we had a good time playing back the drums, and I think more importantly, I met some of Ozzy's people, and they remembered me after that. And then so when Ozzy was doing demos with Zakk Wylde for the Black Rain album, and they realized they could make a record there, that times had changed. You didn't have to go into a $1,500 a day room. He could just make it sitting at home, which is really what he wanted to do. So they did some demos and said, this is great. And then, but they wanted somebody that they could definitely, you know, count on for the sounds.
That's
So
crazy.
talk about, that was 360 before 360.
That is wild. People are calling you the Tony Stark of music in the chat.
Oh, that's cool, man. That's a great compliment. Thank you.
Wow. So you build the studio, you're on the show. What?
I work in the studio with Ozzy, so I would record things with him. He'd come in, I'd be there, and Dave, can we cut a vocal today, man? And so, yeah, Oz, let's do it. And he would go in the booth and, you know, put ideas together or whatever. I would record them and edit them and all of that. And yeah, it was great. I mean, it was incredible. But you're right. I mean, I was wearing a lot of hats, and I do that with most of the artists with whom I work. You know, and you're a perfect example, Office Drummer. Look at the things that you and I are ideating and are putting together. It's not just one thing. It's not just about your drumming or your streaming or your songwriting, you know, or other elements of your career. It's all different things because you share multiple passions and you excel at them and you go for them. And I do the same thing. And so you put that together, and the best compliment I ever got was when somebody called me a Renaissance man. And I took a step back and I thought about the Renaissance men that, like Da Vinci and people that Elon Musk, just people that have contributed at such high levels. Their legacy will live for centuries. So I didn't feel deserving of that compliment, but I was highly grateful that they said that. And what I took from it was they're acknowledging that instead of just putting all my effort into one thing, I put it into multiple things and really went for all of those things. Didn't leave anything kind of as secondary like a lot of people do. And that's fine too if that's what someone does. But you and I don't. You know, we kind of go, all right, you know, we're going to do these 5 things and we're just going to give it all we got and try to be the best in 5 things because we're passionate about those things. So with Ozzy as an example, and other rock talks we'll do, if we talk about Aerosmith, or we talk about Styx, or we talk about Journey, or, you know, whoever it is, you're going to hear similar kind of perspectives from me because when I get involved with an artist, it tends to grow because they need those multiple things. And then they realize, oh, this guy can do that too. Why have another person come in? It gets more complicated. You got to set the logistics and all of these different things. Well, if we can trust one guy and he can do it, he can handle all of these things, then let's work with the guy we like and that we know. And that's how my career has evolved for decades, and it's been amazing.
Wow, that's so inspiring, man. I would love for you to talk a little bit about like what it was like being in the studio with Ozzy and recording. What was his process? What was he thinking? Like, what were his goals? Also, Game Boy, thank you so much for the 2 gift subs. And everybody in chat, I love you guys. Thank you so much for being here to Rock Talk episode 1. But yeah,
Rock Talk.
Yeah.
The Blizzard of Oz. They're on the crazy train. Speaking of the crazy train, are you going to get behind that crazy kid anytime soon?
Yeah. After this question, I'll play you guys a song. What do you think, chat?
All right. Play an Ozzy song if you take requests.
So what was it like being in the studio with Ozzy? What?
I mean, it was surreal. You know, he was such an incredible singer. He sang, you know, one take, two takes all the time because he just had it down. He just knew. He was one of the most natural, talented people I've ever worked with. He was so extraordinary. Just just a natural. Like, I mean, it was God given. You know, he could just, he had an idea, had a lyric, had a melody. He could just sing it. Like, he just, what you hear on all of those recordings is Ozzy literally just going up to the microphone and singing. Like, it's not manufactured, it's not punched in 1,000 times. And there's nothing wrong with either of those things. If people have to have auto tune and processing, I mean, that's part of the, you know, that's part of some people's approach. And editing, there's nothing wrong with that either. But Ozzy was just so talented and natural that in so many cases that I witnessed, he just put the track down. And, you know, maybe we did a few takes because he wanted to try different approaches or styles, or, you know, did I want to do it this way? Did I want to put this kind of energy in? But it's all creative. You know, his ability to try different creative ideas and sing whatever he was envisioning and hearing was just unbelievable. And it's no surprise that, you know, he's one of the most accomplished and successful rock stars in history. He was one of those rock stars I worked with that every time I just thought to myself, this makes perfect sense. You know, he's world famous, sells out arenas and stadiums every time he walks out the door. Now he's a world famous television star. You know, he's a pop culture icon as much as he's an accomplished performer and songwriter. It all makes sense. Like, he was so talented and so great to work with. It just all made sense to me.
Would those studio sessions be like hours and hours long? Would you guys go late into the night, or was it
sometimes? Sometimes Ozzy was more structured than that. So sometimes he liked to work late, but he was very structured. You know, it'd be like, okay, this is what time we're going to work. And a lot of times, you know, when you have Ozzy's schedule, it's hard to just sit in the studio all day, especially when the show was going on. He had a lot of commitments and he was touring all the time. And then they have a home in England. So he would go between England and Beverly Hills. And so there were a lot of moving parts. So he was very structured, and, you know, there wasn't a lot of improvisation in terms of schedule. Of course, there's always fluidity when you're dealing with a rock star schedule, but it wasn't like going into the night all the time and grinding through. It was more structured than that. He had a plan, like, okay, we're going to work on this song or these songs, and he would just get through them. And then, you know, and then I would sit there and work on whatever I needed to do offline after he left, you know, because once he finishes cutting the vocals, and everything from there is really, direction from him. You know, make it sound like this, or do that, or edit this, or put this layer in. So I could do that without his having to sit there. And then I could call him and go, okay, I'm ready, Oz, for you to hear it. And then he would tell you what he thought. And if you needed to keep making changes, you would. And otherwise, he'd say, yeah, sounds great, and move on to the next thing.
So no 2 a.m. calls like, Frangioni, get to the studio now. I need you.
Once in a while, if they were working when I wasn't there and something went sideways, I would, you know, because I was the technical guy too. So I wasn't just the creative, I was as more so even the technical. So everything working was my responsibility. And as that grew from the studio to the home theater to the home automation to the this to the that to all these different multiple homes, you know, there were a lot of opportunities for things to go wrong technologically, not because I didn't do them right, but because technology, you know, how many times do you reboot your computer or your phone? I mean, it just happens because that's technology.
This stream
Look at
is a perfect example.
live stream.
Exactly.
We started on Zoom, now we're on Discord. I started on my mic, now I'm on my AirPods. I mean, that's a perfect, there you are. There's the case study in real life, real time. So imagine that, you know, times 1,000 in terms of scope. And so, yeah, I would get a call sometimes late, like, oh, we have Britney Spears over and we're showing her this video and the system stopped working, and I would have to instantly go, all right, reboot this, try this, push that, and get it back, like, without being there. And this is before remote access, right? Nowadays, I can do that for a client without giving them instructions. I can just say, hold on, and I can log in to a secure connection and I can reboot the stuff and literally in under 3 minutes, they're back. And nobody showed up at the house. Nobody was behind equipment or any of that kind of stuff. We've come so far. But in 2003, that wasn't available, even in cutting edge solutions like we did for the Osbournes. And so I would have to take the call that you're referring to and get them back. But I always did. I have 100% track record. As crazy as that sounds, sometimes I can't believe it myself, but I have 100% track record in everything working that I installed. It might need a reboot. It might need this or that because it's tech, but it never stopped working. Like the gag on the Osbournes before I was involved was Ozzy would get stuck on the Weather Channel. Do you remember that gag?
Yeah.
Right, he'd have the touch panel in his hand, and he was trying to watch the History Channel because that was what he always watched, and it wouldn't work, and he was stuck on the Weather Channel, like the worst, most boring channel. If you're trying to watch World War II history and you're stuck on the Weather Channel 24/7, it was a very funny gag because that was the tech, the person that installed that, it didn't work so well. And it wasn't user friendly. So Ozzy would go to watch the History Channel and it gets stuck on the Weather Channel and the channel wouldn't change, and that became like a funny segment on the show.
Weather in Afghanistan, 2,000 degrees and cloudy. What the fuck am I doing? I'm stuck on the Weather Channel.
On this screen you can control basically the whole house. Satellite, and then they have satellite music, CD.
What kind of fucking stupid...
That was seasons 1 and 2 before I was involved. Then when I got involved and they were filming seasons 3 and 4, we fixed all of that and everything worked from then on. And if anything, just needed a reboot.
Wow, man. Well, it sounds like the vibe in the studio was pretty great. Chat, should we bring the vibe here right now and play a little jam ski? A little Ozzy Osbourne classic, international smash hit? Put a W in the chat. I do have to switch over. I turned it off because we were having those issues, but let me turn it back on real quick. All right, drums. You guys ready? Let's play a little jam real quick. What's up, Mr. Zircon? And guys, I just want to say also, thank you so much for being here at Rock Talk episode 1. Means the world, man. Really, David Frangioni is such a great guy. He can't hear what I'm saying right now, but it's really a blessing. So he's got so many great stories. He's worked with so many amazing people, and now he's working with us and with me. It's truly an honor. So spam up the W's. Everybody spam W Frangioni, and let's rock and roll. Now, you didn't hear anything I just said, but I just said a bunch of really nice things about you. So just so you know. And now it's time to rock, chat. Let's go. right. Sorry, dude. I should have warned you that I had to switch something. So if you wanted to hear, you had to pull up the stream. But
I did. I pulled it up. You sounded great.
Ah, thanks, man.
Yeah, man. Sound absolutely great. Love Crazy Train. I'll never forget the first time I ever heard it on Blizzard of Oz, and here we are.
Well, tell us about it. What was it like hearing it for the first time? Who's the drummer on that track? I'm sure you know a bunch of little details.
Lee Kerslake, right, from Uriah Heep. First of all, let me do a shout out to chat, to our audience out there. How's the chat doing? Everybody digging this?
Yeah, guys, give us a little temperature rating. I mean, people were popping off during the jam session. I'm seeing a yes,
Awesome.
Yes, W's a good thing. Yes, sir, we love this. Yes, David, we loved it. Cheers from Germany.
Right.
Amazing. More of this. Yeah. Oh, there.
Love Germany.
Dude, I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for being here.
Yep. We love you guys, and we love talking rock.
Hell yeah.
So first time I ever heard Blizzard of Oz, a friend in my neighborhood had the album, and Ozzy was coming to town playing the Orpheum Theater. This is before the album really blew up. He did a smaller, like couple thousand seat tour to start when the album first came out, and then of course it blew up and he was in arenas, and the rest is history. Of course, he was so famous from Black Sabbath, but he had kind of a lull between leaving Sabbath and Blizzard of Oz as far as the audience concerned. We're now back in like 1980-ish, and I'll never forget, I put on the album, my friend had it, and you have I Don't Know and Crazy Train and like these iconic songs, and it was Lee Kerslake, who had been the drummer in Uriah Heep. There's a great documentary, by the way, that you can search up about Lee Kerslake, and so you guys should want to do that. It's and of course it talks about his playing on Ozzy, played on Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman. And then when the tour happened, Tommy Aldridge was the drummer. Of course, famous drummer, played with Pat Travers before that. Black Oak, Arkansas, had his really biggest moment with Ozzy when he got on that stage. Amazing double bass drummer, amazing drummer in general. And then when he left Ozzy's band after a run for quite some years, he went to Whitesnake. So the famous 1987 Whitesnake album, Is This Love, and like all those huge, Here I Go Again, and all those iconic, massive hits. I mean, the album sold over 20 million copies. That's Tommy Aldridge. And so iconic drummer, and really got his biggest break when he joined Ozzy's band. And that was an incredible band. Before Randy Rhoads passed away, God bless Randy. You had Rudy Sarzo and Tommy and Ozzy, and it was an incredible band. Incredible.
Do you know what the audition process was like to become Ozzy's drummer? Like, what did these guys have to do? How did they end up in those situations?
Well, the thing about Ozzy is if you look at his whole career, everybody in his band, whatever configuration of the band we're talking about, because it changed, right? He had different drummers at different times, different guitarists, etc. They were always the best musicians in the world. He never had anyone less than the best in every role. So it doesn't matter if it was drums, guitar, bass, keyboards. They were the best. Discovering essentially, Randy Rhoads, Zakk Wylde, Jakey Lee, just Gus G. I mean, they're all those are like the guitar gods of the last 30 years. They were all from Ozzy's band. So the audition process was, either he would do an open audition or he would take closed auditions and just referrals and people in the network, and then they would come in and play with him, and he would just see, if he liked it, how it gelled, how he felt about it, how they played. And as you can see from the musicians who ended up in his band over the decades, they were all the best in the world. So I mean, he knew when he heard and played with an incredible musician, he knew it, and he would bring him in the band, and that's why he always had the best bands.
Did Ozzy ever say like what made a great musician? Did he ever talk about that? Like, maybe not what he was looking for, but just what What did he love about musicians? What did he love about music?
Well, we loved the Beatles, right? That just like
Wow.
the origin of his inspiration. He loved the Beatles.
I thought the Beatles were the best, and now you're making fun of the shit?
They were the best band to ever happen to the fucking world.
I don't like the Beatles.
Where the fuck did you find this head case from?
Dude, that scary shit doesn't work with me, alright, buddy?
That does so.
But he would, what he was looking for in musicians that I was aware of from whatever he would share with me and talk about it is he was looking for originality. He was looking for chemistry with him and the rest of the band. And he was looking for just extreme talent. If you look at the guitarist, that's like the most obvious place to look because it's so easy to follow. You don't have to be a musician and you don't have to know a lot about the inner workings of music. So look at the guitarists he had over the decades and just how every one of them became the leading guitarist of their generation. And then Zakk Wylde, became his own bona fide rock star, just toured with Pantera for all these years in honor of Dimebag Darrell. Of course, he has Black Label Society. He's an iconic guitarist and legend at this point. And he started with Ozzy. And so Ozzy could see, even at that time, how great he was and kind of see the future, that here was someone who was going to go on to be an innovator at the highest level, a generational talent that very few people in any instrument, especially guitar, will ever achieve. And he did it. So Ozzy was always looking for that. It's almost a needle in a haystack, really, because there's a lot of great musicians, but there's not a lot of legendary, iconic level musicians. And he would find those. And he did the same thing with drumming, right? Tommy Aldridge and Randy Castillo and Mike Borden and, of course, Tommy Clufetos and, just really guys that are just incredible drummers, incredible rock metal drummers.
Hey, chat, do you guys remember when I jammed with Zakk Wylde? Who remembers that? That was an epic moment. That was sick.
Man, I'll say. Yeah, Zach's incredible.
So I'm also curious, what was it like working with Sharon?
Amazing. I absolutely will always cherish and be grateful for that. What an extraordinary person. She doesn't need my accolades. She doesn't need to hear that I think this or I think that, because she's on such a plane and has accomplished so much that nobody has to validate her career. It is truly iconic and legendary. I'll just share from a personal perspective and professional perspective, working directly with her, that's not so known to people unless you worked with her, right? She's a legend because you see her career accomplishments, but what was she like to work with is very unique and individual. And I can say that it was incredible. She was so on top of everything. She was so wonderful. She was the brilliant, insightful, just total innovator, and always treated me with so much respect. And I'll always be grateful, that I could say that I worked with her and that I got to know her. And the experience was amazing. It was like nothing but great things to say.
What was it like to see them work together? And because it's so crazy to have a family and be in business together. There's so much baggage in that. There's so much potential tension and conflict, but
a lot of dynamics. It's true. It's really true, Office Drummer. It's a very, very unique situation. It worked perfectly for them. What was it like? It was bizarre beyond words, because they would go from arguing one moment to being laughing in another moment, and all of it worked. And so it was just uniquely their chemistry and their working style. Always professional, always. And Ozzy, if I had to say one word to kind of describe all the interactions, whether it was with the kids, because I worked closely with Jack and Kelly and Amy. Amy wasn't on the show, but she was the third child, as I'm sure Osbourne fans know, but she didn't want to be on the show, so she wasn't on camera. But she was very much a part of the family, of course. So I worked with all five of them. you know, and the only word I can tell you just to sum it all up was hysterical. Like it was the funniest thing you could ever imagine. Like they were so charismatic and entertaining just naturally. And Ozzy was such a jokester all the time that it was unbelievable. I mean, there's nothing like it in the world. I could tell you so many rock star stories, talk about so many different records, tours, things that people would know. They'd know the song, they'd know the band, and this or that. But nobody was as funny and as witty and as comically, you know, kind of stylistically, as a persona as Ozzy.
That sounds like it was just a blast. Like
It was. Office drummer, we'd have an 11 a.m. or 12 p.m. call time. And I'd say, can I get there at 9? And they, what? Why do you want to get there so early? Because I lived in Florida, but I was in LA all the time because that's where the house and projects were with Ozzy. So I would stay out there. And I just would rather be there than anywhere else because it was so entertaining and so fun. And there was always so much going on that I was just like, yeah, I'm not just there to work. I'm there to contribute. I'm there to just be a part of whatever I can contribute to. So if I'm there, then I can contribute, right? So it's not like you're thinking like job terms, like, oh, they want me from 11 to 5. So that's when I'll get there at 5 minutes of 11 and I'll leave at 5:05. No, you want me 11 to 5? How about I get there at 9? I'll stay till midnight. And what? Yeah. And you know what? All kinds of great things would happen before 11 and after 5. And I could contribute. I could be a part of it because it's exactly what you're talking about. It was so electric and there was so much energy between the show and all the famous friends that came by and Ozzy's creativity and his personality and his kind of his wit. And then Sharon, at the time, she had a talk show, the Sharon Osbourne show. It was a daytime show. The first couple of years I was with them, she had that show. And so there was always just stuff going on. And I remember standing out front in the driveway one night, and all of a sudden I hear like helicopters over my head. And that was not typical, right? As much activity as was going on and all the buses that drove by every 2 minutes with tourists all day long, thousands and thousands and thousands of people every day to just see the house. You just see tourist buses like the Hollywood Star buses.
Yeah.
As much as that happened, you didn't hear helicopters very often. But all of a sudden I hear a helicopter and I see like a spotlight coming down from the helicopter, like I'm in war. Like you see in like Apocalypse Now or something crazy, right? I'm just like, what the hell is going on? And then all of a sudden the gates open and a Mercedes comes, a Mercedes 2-door sports car. At the time, they were like, really expensive, $100,000, $200,000 Mercedes sports cars that you never really saw that often. And it comes speeding through the gate that just opened, and it stops, and you just hear this roar. There's people outside, there's cars, there's helicopter, and out comes Britney Spears, and she was there to film a spot with Ozzy. They were doing like a Pepsi commercial or something. And at this time, she was the biggest star. She was like the Ariana Grande of today, or Taylor Swift, or whoever you want to name this like massive star. So she just brought this paparazzi and attention that was just like massive. It was like a swell. And I'm just standing there. She comes screeching in, gets out of the car, goes in the house, films the spot. 15 minutes later, she comes out, backs out, gates open, she backs out, disappears. The helicopter flies away. It was so weird. It like went from this quiet to this massive helicopter paparazzi and onslaught to quiet again in like 30 minutes. And then I walk inside and they're like, oh yeah, Brittany, you want to see the spot that Brittany just, and they show me the playback, and she had filmed this spot in bed with Ozzy. It ran on TV, you could see the commercial. And it was this funny thing. And I'm just like, oh, that's what she was here filming. And it just happened so quick. Like this is 30 minutes of one day in the life of being at the Osbourne. So it was electrifying.
Wow, that's a collab that I would have loved to see more stuff from. Like a Britney Spears Ozzy album would be amazing.
Yeah.
Where's my Viagra when I need it?
Well, Jessica Simpson came in and did Winter Wonderland for an MTV special, which you can still see the bit on that. And, funny fact, when the Osbournes sold the Doheny house where the show was filmed, they sold it to Christina Aguilera, right?
That's so
right?
random.
Famous. Right. But then when they sold the Hidden Hills house, the second house I put a studio in, they sold it to Jessica Simpson. So what is this about attractive, blonde, superstar pop singers that their houses get sold to? I just thought that was so random that each of the houses went to like the current pop star, very similar, kind of personalities and genres of those two houses. So I don't know where the third house was sold to. I didn't put a studio in it, but I thought that was kind of a fun
That's so
fact.
funny. It's like inside Ozzy, there's a white pop singer. I guess so.
Could be. Could be. At least I want to buy his house.
I want to take it back a little bit though and talk more because I feel like Sharon and Ozzy are kind of like inseparable. Like when you talk about one, you have to talk about the other. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about like how did they meet? How did they start their relationship or their partnership? How did that even come together?
Well, long before I was in their camp, so I'm going by the story. They never told me the story, so I'm going by what I have seen online and what I've read in books, etc. And I know actually most of this is true, but I just want to be very clear on the source that it's secondhand information. That Sharon's dad, Don Arden, right? Sharon's maiden name is Sharon Arden. He was a very successful music manager, and he managed Black Sabbath, right? Ozzy's band that broke in the 70s and made him a superstar. And then when Ozzy was out of Black Sabbath, he managed Ozzy's solo career, and he had his daughter Sharon be the rep and go to be the day-to-day manager on his behalf. So she met Ozzy that way. They fell in love, and then Ozzy left Don Arden, the dad, and married Sharon, and then that's when she became his full-time manager, wife. Then they had kids, and so it was a true rock star love affair story. Like it was always based around rock and music and career, and was right up until their last moments together. That was that, like you said, that was the life that they created and had. It was all about music and rock and being together as husband and wife and being together as manager and artist.
Wow, so that's so crazy that her father managed Black Sabbath. So
Yeah.
her father must have been just a powerhouse as well in the music
They
industry.
called him Mr. Big. Yeah, there's a great book out called Mr. Big, The Story of Don Arden. Read that book and you'll see the whole story. But yes, he was a monster manager on as far as the scale of what he worked on. The biggest of the big. ELO and Black Sabbath and just massive stars.
That was back in the day too, when things were a little bit more rough and tumble, a little bit more gangster.
Yes, very much so.
Money in the bag.
When you read the book, when you read the book, there's guys being held outside of balconies by their ankles until they, change their mind. And I mean, very, very gangster times to say the least.
Wow. That's a wild thing. That I don't think that would happen these days, but I can't say for certain.
Yeah, it happens, but it looks differently, right? It's not so physically, kind of played out. It's a little more tactical. But back then it was very rough and tumble, as you said. That's a great way to put it. Of course, they were in England, right, where Sharon and her family are from, and Ozzy's from. Ozzy's from Birmingham. And that's where it all started.
Are there any particular memories of your time with Ozzy that really stick with you? Maybe something that would be unexpected or just really stands out in your mind?
Oh, there's so many. I mean, Office Drummer, there are literally hundreds of memories. Can you imagine every day being with Ozzy and just even if I were literally just a fly on the wall, if I just followed him around and just been in the entourage, I'd have hundreds of stories. Working with him and actually interacting and being part of his world for different periods, the stories are endless. I'll tell you one funny moment that no one would ever know this because it was just he and I there. When I got to the house that first day, and he was showing me the guest house, and he was walking around it and saying what would we do with the drum. I was showing we could put the drum room here, we could do this, and just really making it very clear. How the studio would unfold, what it would look like when it was done. And I had a drawing that I had brought that I had done on the fly to kind of show him the layout and all of that. And then he said, what's it going to cost? And I said, well, we got one of the factors in the cost is how isolated the room needs to be. And I said, the more isolation, the more complicated it is to soundproof, the more expensive it is. And we have to determine that. And I know from watching the show that the neighbors were always on his, down his neck about, how much sound, how much noise they were making. So this was really going to put a spotlight on him and in the neighborhood. So I knew we had to have a lot of isolation. He agreed, of course. And he said, well, what do we do? How do we know how isolated it is? I said, well, I'll tell you what. I said, do you have like a boom box, like a playback radio with speakers? Yes. And he goes in the house and he comes back out and he has this Bose, boom box speaker system with a CD player. And I had brought with me, because this is before streaming, right? I had brought with me a CD of just drums on it. It was a drum sample CD. So it was just loops, acoustic drum loops. So we know exactly that's the kind of thing that would be playing in the real studio later on. So I said, all right. He goes, what do we do? I said, okay, we're going to put the drum loop on and we're going to play it in the room and we're going to play it through the boombox speakers. And then we're going to walk outside. We're going to close all the doors and windows and we're going to walk outside. And the louder we hear the sound, close or far from the room, will determine how much isolation this room really requires. Because maybe it's already isolated. Maybe the doors and glass are already very thick and the walls. And okay, great. So we hit the doom, ka, da doom, doom, ka, doom, doom, ka, and it's playing. And I turn it up loud like a real drummer was in the room. And we close all the doors and windows. And he goes, how am I going to know? And I said, you'll know. Come with me. And we walk outside and we start walking away from the guest house and the sound doesn't change volume at all. It's loud as hell. So there's no isolation right now. So we're walking away, and we get like 20, we're almost at the other house, the main house. And he looks at me, and as we're going, he's like scared, like, oh, no, what do we need? And we're getting closer and closer. And as we get towards the other house, he looks at me and he goes, Dave, technically speaking, I think we're beep. And I said, technically speaking, you're right. And so we walk back and we have to put all this isolation in. And he just made such a joke of it. He's like, oh, and he starts cracking all of these jokes because basically we're going to have to rip the whole place out and really build this out, or you're going to hear the drums throughout all of Beverly Hills, and that's just not going to work.
That's too funny. We're here with David Frangioni, the owner of Modern Drummer Magazine. This is episode 1 of Rock Talk. He's telling us all about his experiences with none other than the legend Ozzy Osbourne. Ever heard of him? And yeah, man, thank you. Yes.
We could make a part 2. There's so many stories of Ozzy. If the audience wants it, if chat wants it, there's enough Ozzy for God knows how many rock talks. I mean, we don't want to just make rock talk about one artist, even an iconic one like Ozzy. But maybe there's a part 2 in the future. So we're conscious of everyone's time now. But I want to go back to the first time that you and I talked for a second, when you were referring to Max being there and my calling you to let you know that you were nominated. Being nominated for a Modern Drummer Readers Poll is the drumming equivalent of an actor getting called saying, you're up for an Academy Award. So you've won before anything else happens. And I will tell you, you did really great in the voting. Just that was a tough category. But you got a lot of votes and you did extremely well. And yes, you have a certificate coming, which only the nominees get. So yes, first place is great, but being nominated is extraordinary. And there are very few drummers in history over the decades that award has existed that are ever nominated.
Yeah, I mean, if I could just say real quick, it's such an honor. Like first of all, it was unexpected, and just to be nominated is insane. Obviously, I was up against Ellis DeBarrio, who's the GOAT. Hey, and I'll admit it. Hey, he is a phenomenal drummer. He's a phenomenal content creator. I love everything he does. So, like, honestly,
and his audience is insane.
His audience is insane, and he has such a mass appeal. Like, to me, it's not a loss. For him to take it home makes perfect sense to me. So, and you know what? There's always next year. There's always next year with all the stuff that we're working on and planning. So it was an incredible honor to be nominated, something that I could have never dreamed of. So yes, that was a fantastic moment for me and for the community. But yeah, so definitely we're gonna have to hit a part 2 on Ozzy. But I mean, there's so many other rock stars that you could tell us about. I mean, Aerosmith, Styx, Journey. You said, well, you have such an extensive list of people that you've worked with. Who, like, if we were to do a part 2, I would want to come back in a few weeks on part 2. So who do you think we should be tackling next? What do you think?
Well, you want to ask chat? Or you want to
maybe
ask
you
me?
could say some of the people that you could talk about, and then chat can. Have you worked with Elton John? Someone saying
yes.
You worked with, okay, well, see, guys, I mean, you could really talk about anybody. So
I wish it could be anybody if you want to know firsthand rock stars, but there's hundreds, so we have a good shot at getting some.
So you have Elton John, Kiss, Aerosmith,
yes.
Journey.
Yes, of course. Yes. Styx, Ricky Martin, Shakira.
Ricky Martin's
Ringo
a crazy
Starr.
one. When you told me about your Ricky Martin story, I was like, that's actually insane. I mean, we'll save it for...
A lot of great Ricky stories. I mean, that was a moment in time. Again, will never be duplicated, right? Because when you're able to be a part of something that's a first, it's truly special, and you don't, timing is something that you can't always control. And, when you're in the right place at the right time. Now, granted, in my case, whenever I've been in the right place at the right time, I've put myself there. So I'm not saying that, I'm not blessed, because I am, but I'm also saying that I've never been party to just like some happenstance. Oh, wow, amazing. Like, I just happened to get a phone call. No, I worked my tail off. Even the Ozzy story, I was working for years, building up, working with Mark Hudson, working with iconic artists. And, so when Ozzy called, I was ready. And that's why it lasted more than 10 years. And that's why it was successful. So there's a lot that goes into it. But timing is something that you can't control, no matter how hard you work. So the fact that Ozzy had never had a home studio, I had no control over that. The fact that I was first, that was just an incredible moment that aligned, and Ricky's another perfect example. I mean, he broke the barrier between Latin music and pop music and invented basically something that will now be a part of music and history forever. There's no going back. And now you look at the biggest artists in the world, Bad Bunny, Karol G, and Shakira, of course. These are stadium-selling artists. their careers are direct results of what Ricky innovated. So being a part of that at that time, in that moment, and what now is part of music history, a Latin revolution, I pinch myself.
Yeah, it's incredible. And that his big song was, I believe you told me it was
Livin' La Vida Loca.
Livin' La Vida Loca. It was the first song completely done in the box that hit
Right.
number
First
one.
first number one Billboard hit to be done entirely in Pro Tools. And that was, again, an evolution of my involvement with Pro Tools, with Desmond Child, with Robbie Rosa, with Ricky Martin, with Charles Dye, who mixed it. And, of course, DigiDesign at the time. That was before they sold to Avid. Yeah, a lot of firsts on that one. That one has kind of multiple firsts, if you will. So, but great stuff to share with everyone. If you like the behind the scenes and you like the stories that you'd never really hear unless you were there, then you'll love what Office Drummer and I have to share. And that's what we love to do. We love to share. We love to bring you guys behind the curtain and give you a peek into a day in the life of, and hopefully bring some entertainment and even education in some cases. And that's what it's all about. It's all about sharing what we live in, making an impact with the artists, sharing that with everyone and bringing everybody into the conversation.
Absolutely. And for me, it's such a great learning opportunity because like you have so much to share. I have so much to learn, there's so much to know, whether it's about gear or artists or drummers, all of it.
And we can do one of these in the studio, Office Drummer, in my studio. Because when you talk about gear and learning, I got more gear in there than we have hours in the day to stream.
That would be so fun. That would be so much fun, man, to go in and check out your drum collection and just talk about it and learn about it.
Talk gear. Make Rock Talk a little bit of nerding out. Again, it's whatever chat wants. We're here to serve.
That's right. That's right, chat. We're here to serve you. Can everybody please spam W Frangioni, W Modern Drummer, W Rock Talk, because this is going to be a series that we're going to keep on doing as long as you guys keep enjoying it. And I'm really, really thankful. Personally, like I'll just be honest, like a lot of times when you're a streamer, when you're a content creator, it can be a little scary to try to start something new. You're not sure how people are going to respond, but seeing how you guys have been so engaged in the chat and into this, it's really inspiring and motivating to me to want to keep this going and to grow it and to make it better. So I think Rock Talk is going to continue on, and I'm really stoked about where we can take this. So, and I see a bunch of new people in the chat too, and that makes me really happy. So welcome, guys.
Well, thank you, Office Drummer. First of all, thank you, chat, for being here. We'll see you guys again next time. Check out the David Frangioni YouTube channel. Check out the Modern Drummer YouTube channels. And check out all the streaming that Modern Drummer is going to do, because we're doing it with this guy here, Office Drummer, an incredible drummer, innovator, contributor. Big things happening this year. So just stay tuned, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, David. You're the man, dude. You're the man.
My wife, Caroline, is here. You, of course, Office Drummer.
Of course.
You know my beautiful wife. Come on, he wants to say, just wave.
She's shy. Hey,
all right, yeah.
Good to
She's
see
not on
you.
AirPods, so you can't hear her, but she's sending her love to you and her best. And she's excited about all that we're doing. So, Ozzy. So, let's talk about this moment where Ozzy got a new car. He got a BMW 7 Series, and it was right out of a movie. So they put the camera guy in the back seat, and I was in the back seat. His assistant was in the back seat. Ozzy was driving. Mark Hudson was in the passenger seat, and then there was someone else in, I think, security guard. But the car was very packed. Like the camera guy was basically like on somebody's lap back there, because it's a sedan, and there are all these people in this car. And I remember we all get in the car, and Ozzy is like, and they're going to film this moment for the show. I think it actually got on the show at some point. Anyway, we all get in the car, and it happened very fast. And they were just like, "Oh, Ozzy's new car," because they delivered it, right? The BMW dealership like brought the car to his house and put it in the driveway. And so he's like, "Oh, Ozzy's new car is here." We all go out to the driveway, and we're like, "Oh, wow, there it is." And so Ozzy's like really fat. He's like, "Oh, let's go for a ride." So we all pile into the car, and the gate opens, and Ozzy is just about to drive the car. And I look at the camera guy and Ozzy's assistant, and I go, "Does Ozzy know how to drive?" And just as I say it, he hits the gas like 100, like the buries his foot in the gas pedal, and we all go backwards like a rocket just launched. And he goes flying out of the driveway, and he is driving like a fire hosing. Like the answer is no. He does not remember how to drive. I am hanging on for dear life. We're driving around the back roads of Beverly Hills. And the thing about Ozzy was that he knew how to play it for the camera. He was such a natural comedian that when the camera was rolling, he had funny, his jokes didn't stop, and he had perfect timing for when he did things and how he said things. So he knows the camera guy's there. And we're all in the car. We're turning white as a ghost because we are scared to death. He's going way too fast on the back roads of Beverly Hills to see what this car can do. He didn't totally remember how to drive because he doesn't drive really. He's driven around. He doesn't have to drive. He's got a driver, and he's at home most of the time. If he's on tour, he's on the jet or on the bus or in the car. Like, he's not driving. So it was just like, I'll never forget it. We finally get back to the house, right? I don't know how we made it back there alive. And all of us, the car comes back and the gate opens back into the driveway, and we stop, and you could hear a pin drop because we're all like, can't believe what we just, it was like a roller coaster. We were literally just like on a roller coaster. And Ozzy, right on cue, you hear everybody kind of let out a sigh of release, and Ozzy running cue is, "How'd I do?" And everybody just breaks out laughing. "Oh, you did great, Oz. We're alive, right?" He goes, "Oh, I think so." And he's like, touching his arms. Like he doesn't even believe we're alive. And then we get out of the car, back in the studio, and I never saw him drive the car again.
That's beautiful. That's a great
car
great
delivery
story.
according to Ozzy Osbourne.
All right, guys. Thank you, Frangioni. Thank you for the stories. Thank you for the time, man. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for the collaboration. Thank you for Rock Talk.
Absolutely.
It's a great vision, and we have a lot of fun doing this. And you're streaming all the time, so guys, chat. You can ask Office Drummer. You can put questions together. When we get on this, we'll already have some framework, and we'll do what people want to hear. We'll share what they want the behind the scenes on, and it's a great time. And I want everybody to stay safe out there and keep rocking.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we go further in, it's going to be really cool because we can plan just like you said. We can get questions beforehand. We can figure out just different things. So it's definitely an exciting project that can grow into something pretty rad and guests. I mean, obviously David knows 1 trillion people.
You brought up a good point, Office Drummer. This is for chat. There's some moments we're going to have coming up because on behalf of Modern Drummer and the rundowns we do, where we go to a venue where an artist is performing a show that night, and typically these are 10 to 20,000 seat or stadiums, or so up to 100,000 that they're performing at that evening, and we go in the afternoon, and when they're not sound checking, and we walk on the stage, walk in the venue, and go truly behind the scenes, bring the drummer in, other band members sometimes, really bring you into the music in a way that very few people ever experience. And that's going to be part of Rock Talk. but we can't tell them anymore because we're going to give away the whole. Like we're going to open every Christmas gift.
Hey, David,
first day.
you gotta. Secrets. We gotta keep some secrets, you know. TBD, exactly.
Yeah.
But
TBR, to be locked.
But see, guys, I wasn't lying to you. We have a lot of very cool stuff coming up, and I'm so excited. Unfortunately, I gotta. Well, maybe not unfortunately, but I'm gonna go give another lesson to my friend Courtney. So I've got to
another one.
Another one,
today?
man. She
Fantastic.
loves drumming. She loves drumming. It is insane.
That's awesome. She's a great drummer. I've heard her play. She's a great drummer, man. Your lessons are really doing great.
She's learning really this triplet bass. I think it's Olivia Dean is the artist. Her first triplet bass groove, man. She's crushing it. So. Again, guys, check out the Modern Drummer YouTube channel. Check out the David Frangioni YouTube channel. And keep your eyes out for Rock Talk Episode 2. W's in the chat. Thank you. And we will see you guys next time.
Bye, guys. See you next time.